Hi everyone, it's Nadia, this is Jake, and the doggies are downstairs playing today, so you're only going to get humans. Today we're going to be talking about Beetlejuice 2.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah, exactly. Beetlejuice. And we just watched it last night. I am incredibly excited to discuss this because I love the first film. May I go first?
Please.
I would say I really enjoyed it. I would give it a solid 8 out of 10 and highly recommend to begin with. There were some things that I want to criticize about character development. It's just such a wholesome film. I love the comedic horror drama, I guess, of it. I just recently this morning I watched part of the first Beetlejuice, and it was interesting to compare how the second film progressed versus the first film started out. It's a different dynamic because the first one, it's about figuring the afterlife, what happens, kind of the value of people getting along who come from two different backgrounds. And then the second one is very much more family oriented and learning to accept yourself as well as kind of learning to forgive at the same time maintaining the comedic timing of it all. And so I really like the storyline, the plot line. Some characters from the first movie aren't in the second film, the Alec Baldwin.
Gina Davis.
Yeah. There was so much going on in the movie plot line that I'm actually glad that they weren't there because I think it would have been a little bit overwhelming. And I think the first one and the second one, the common theme is discovery. I think the first one is self-discovery, but the second one is rediscovery, if that makes sense. Especially Winona Ryder's portrayal. Her character, without giving anything away, her character kind of goes through a little bit of metamorphosis. I feel like pretty laid back in the first film. In the second film, it's more she's taken 50 steps backwards in life when it comes to her confidence and anxiety, and kind of seeing her reclaim that, if that makes sense. At the same time, in the trailer you can see that she's a mom, the dynamics have changed, relationships in her life have surfaced and changed in a certain and went in a certain direction. So it's really interesting to see that. I thought Jenna Ortega, I haven't seen Wednesday, but I have seen different portrayals. Thought her character seemed very similar without actually watching the series on Netflix to what she portrayed in this film. But I thought it worked really well. I thought her depiction of the daughter was really well done, and I thought it added a good rounding of the whole story and relationship to the mom character and also the grandma character or step grandma character. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I really liked that they kept all the essence of what was good in the first film and then took it into the second, but with a whole new story. And what I really liked about this film is a lot of times when there's classics like Beetlejuice, they try to recreate it. So you see a sequel as same story done again, maybe with a different character or just the same thing happening again, because they're like, this is the formula that works, so let's just do the same thing. Felt like they didn't do the same thing in this film. I felt like they progressed the characters and their story along. And I really like that. And I wish more people would do that for more sequels. So yeah. What do you think without spoiling anything?
Well, I didn't like it.
What?
I liked it okay. There were some parts that were fine and fun. I thought Michael Keaton is always fun to see as Beetlejuice. Creative choices that were made. I think that a lot of the more analog, leaning away from digital and CGI. Of course, there was probably a ton of CGI in this, but more I like the stop motion elements. I liked all of the creative body horror stuff, and clearly there was a lot of fun being shown to the frame, to what was going on, just the little gags and stuff. But overall, I thought it was just a mess, and I thought it leaned into a lot of the legacy sequel trends that are just obnoxious and tiresome. And I think a lot of it was just remember this? Remember this stuff? Yeah, I was really not very happy with it. I don't think it captured the spirit of the first one. Mm-hmm. I think some of it did. It was everything was cranked up to 11. We were watching some of the original Beetlejuice, and you're just reminded of what a simple, feels grounded story compared to the sequel. There's zaniness and weirdness, but it's also kind of dark and moody, and there's a sad, a somber, weird tone to it. Mm-hmm. Whereas this movie was just cartoon characters. Even Catherine O'Hara's character, who, was such a stereotype of and like a parody of the yuppie 80s, rich person. In this, she's just like cranked up to 11. There's so much like big gags. There's no sense of like real worldness. Like everything just feels like stylized, big, cartoony, which I think is reminiscent. And you can see the evidence of that in Tim Burton's like later movies. So I think like there was clearly a sense of like Tim Burton and his creative team or whatever were like, you know what? We've strayed from the light. We've become big Hollywood people. We made Dumbo and Alice in Wonderland. We have this like CGI mess, disgusting. It's just, I can't stand, late period Tim Burton. I think most people can't and haven't been a fan of him for a long time, even if his movies make a lot of money. And I think this was a self-conscious decision to be like, yeah, let's go back to our roots. And it's like, how much are you really going back to your roots when you're just pulling from one of your most beloved films to create just sequel content? And that's what the word that I thought about a lot after watching this movie. Like, yeah, there's good content in here. It feels like content. Let's create some more Beetlejuice content. There's some good clips, some good moments, but otherwise it felt so hollow to me. It felt like there wasn't really a story. There was some fun creative energy, but it just really went nowhere. I know like the story isn't necessarily what people remember about the original Beetlejuice, but there is a story. There's like a simple story about a couple dealing with the afterlife and almost becoming like foster parents to this girl who is struggling to cope in this world. So I think there could have been a good story in Beetlejuice if they had focused on like one element. If they had just focused on the Jenna Ortega story, or if they had focused on the Beetlejuice's ex-wife story, like there were things that could have worked, but they just start and stop randomly. And at the end of it, it just felt like a bunch of goofiness with no real payoff. Pretty forgettable, unfortunately, for me.
Wow. I mean, I agree with some of the things you're saying. I do want to get into that in spoiler section, but I didn't think that you didn't like it. I thought maybe you'd give it like a couple ratings lower than mine. But I mean, I guess this is why we do these reviews, is because you and I have a lot of opposite opinions.
Yeah, it was fine. Maybe I'm being harsher on it, but I really don't, because I feel like if it weren't a Beetlejuice film, everyone would be a lot harsher on it, because it just kind of...
Well, it does, like...
has a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why like people are excited to watch it, is because it is the nostalgic... Sometimes you want films to cater to that nostalgia that you felt, before, so... Well,
in that nostalgia, I feel like... I'll say there was a specific moment early in the film when I realized, oh, so this is the tone we're going for. And it was the same rendition of the Day-O song that they used in the trailer that people were making fun of. Like, oh, we're doing the slowed down, somber version of the famous song that was in the first movie. That was in this movie during a funeral scene with a choir of children singing. And it was like, it just made no sense to the film, except that, oh, that was in the last movie, remember? Mm-hmm. And the characters just felt like there's just no groundedness that made the silliness work. I mean, that's what I think makes the tone work, especially in earlier Tim Burton movies, that there's a sense of a base, mm-hmm. that all this zany stuff comes to meet. So
what would you rate it?
I give it like a 4 or 5.
So you don't recommend it?
I don't think it's great, but if you really love Beetlejuice, I don't think it's not like it was a total waste of time, there's still some fun to be had. If you really love Beetlejuice, there's Michael Keaton is fun.
Would you say that like people should wait to cater to their nostalgia when it comes to streaming service instead of paying for it in theater?
Yeah, this movie felt very much like they were developing it as a miniseries.
Oh, okay.
Like it felt like they were developing it literally as like an 8-episode miniseries, and then they collapsed it all into one movie, but they still had all of these plot lines that were just so rushed. I could feel like if they had stretched it out a little bit, or if they had just picked 1 or 2 stories, it would have worked great.
That's why I said that like it was good that Alec Baldwin and his wife's characters in the first film weren't in the second one, because it would have been way too much of a thing. Okay, so I highly recommend you do watch it in theater, and Jake recommends you wait to watch it in streaming and not pay extra for it, apparently.
No, you see it in theaters if you want.
Take that. as you may.
Shall we get into spoilers?
Yes, please. 3,
All right, spoilers.
2, 1. Spoilers. All right. So I agree with some parts of what you're saying, although it doesn't change my rating of the film, because I did feel like when the stepmom passed away, it was like she could have had her own kind of plot right there. And then I think the idea is that she passed away so that she can be reunited with her husband who is headless. And by the way, why was he headless? Is it because it's a different actor?
Okay, so this is one of my issues that I had with the movie. I thought was kind of weird and distracting, but this is only if you are aware of the situation. So Jeffrey Jones is an actor who's in a lot of great movies, and he's a great actor, really funny. He was the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He's the dad in Beetlejuice. He has been accused and convicted of very serious sex crimes.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you look it up. I don't want to talk about it on the video, but yeah, so he's not going to be in a Hollywood movie ever again. I was thinking like, okay, they killed him off for the sequel. That makes sense. And they'll probably just like not discuss it very much. But then they did a full like stop motion animated sequence with his likeness. So I'm wondering, like, they're using his likeness for the film. He must be getting paid, like his image. And I don't know how the rights work in that situation.
Do you know? I mean, I guess
I have no idea. But anyways, he's not in the movie, but they do a stop motion sequence. And I thought like at first, like, this is a weird thing to do to avoid having Jeffrey Jones in the movie. But then I was like, maybe they'll do another stop motion flashback sequence like that. But they didn't. That was the only time because he gets eaten by a shark. I guess that's how he died. So he shows up in the afterlife, but his body's like cut off in half and you kind of hear his muffled voice. It just felt awkward and weird for me just because I knew what the context was.
Okay, I didn't know the context.
It was like they're going through really weird elements to get him out of this movie, but to keep his character in the movie. It was like, you aren't including Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, and you just brushed it aside like, oh, well, they moved on. Like, why not do the same for the dad,
Well, because I think it was, they needed a way to bring the family together.
Mm-hmm.
And
we
didn't know Lydia's husband from the previous film. So I think fiance from the previous film. No. Lydia's, I think it was the husband because it was Jenna
the dead husband.
Husband.
Jenna Ortega's dad.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they needed for the grandpa to die because we had relationship with him for the first film. So I think that's why they deemed it necessary. But it does give a lot of context for it. And I think that I disagree with you about the stepmom being a little bit like 11 because there's parts, if you watch the first film, where, she first, example, like threatens her husband, like, if you don't let me update the house, I am going to go crazy and I'm going to drag you with me. And she has like a little outburst like that. I think it's just a little bit more exaggerated in the second film, only because, and this is the way I took, only because like she's in an emotionally distressing situation, losing her husband. Mm-hmm. So I didn't find it too like out of character because of that. I thought that Lydia's character took a back turn because she was a lost girl who didn't fit in with her family, who was trying to find herself. And you're right, like these two ghosts from the first film foster her and help her find that confidence and gain her relationship with her family again. But then she reversed, like she seems very inconfident, very easily manipulated by her fiance in the film. It seemed like she would have a little bit more self-autonomy than she actually did. But, when you really take into the notice that she's gone through, like, she's lost the father for kid's dad, she has a messy relationship with her daughter and everything else, and she's then been a therapist for like people who see ghosts, then I guess those things does take a mental toll on you. So factoring all that in, I can understand that. Another thing is Jenna's character falls for a serial killer ghost who we all like. That was a nice surprise because I didn't realize that he was not only dead, but he was a serial killer, basically, like who murdered his family and then wants to come back to act. He's a psychopath. That was an interesting twist. Well, Lydia asks for Beetlejuice's help to get her daughter back. Beetlejuice has a photo of Lydia, not as an adult self, but still as the teenager self. You know, as like a 300-year-old ghost wanting to marry it's like so bizarre, and just this gross aspect is that the photo hasn't evolved from like her teenage self to an adult self. No, it's like almost like he's wants to marry the teenage Lydia.
Yeah, that's what happened in the first movie.
I know, but it's like
I didn't like that he was like still had like he had a picture of her and was obsessed with her, because in the first movie I got the impression he was just like all around creep dirtbag. Like I wouldn't imagine he has some kind of like long obsession with her over all these years.
No, but this movie is like he has actually an obsession with her.
I didn't like that. I thought that they introduced Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice way too early into the movie, and it was just like seeing him at his workplace and then dealing with, all right, can we get into this?
Yes.
All right. This movie has way too many plot lines going on, because we're introduced to Michael Keaton and Monica Bellucci as his ex-wife.
We're not introduced to Michael Keaton. We know Michael Keaton.
Well, yeah, but we get to see a sequence early on. We go into the underworld, and it's like separated from the rest of real world events. It's like a separate storyline going on. Like, hey, we're catching up with what's going on with Beetlejuice. So there's this woman, Monica Bellucci, who, by the way, is in a relationship with Tim Burton currently. So,
okay.
And it's funny to realize that after you watch the movie, because you go, why was she in the movie? Her story had nothing to do with anything else going on. And it was so...
a soul sucker.
But it was so
does have
strange.
a lot going on.
It has nothing to do with what's going on.
Mean?
Hold on. Because we're introduced to her, and Michael Keaton Beetlejuice is all scared because she's there and like trying to get him or whatever. We don't really know why. There's a fun homage to Italian horror movies where he describes like his backstory with her and how he died and etc. And that was kind of fun. But beyond that, she's just trying to kill people. And then the way Michael Keaton gets sucked into the other story with Jenna Ortega and everyone is he sees a newspaper and he just goes, it's my time to try again, you know? And he just, all right, so what is this other story having to do with that? We don't know. Then there's the story where Jenna Ortega and the boy, where the boy turns out is a ghost and he tries to trick her. And like, okay, that's interesting. I actually, when that happened, I got interested and actually invested in the story, because I was like, okay, this is an interesting thing. Winona Ryder's going to need Beetlejuice now and is going to seek him out to help her save her daughter. That's great. That storyline wrapped up like that. Winona Ryder agrees like, okay, I'll marry you, I'll sign this contract, just save my daughter. And then Beetlejuice does it like instantly, where he drops this lever and the boy drops into hell. And I was like, wait, that's it? Because I was actually interested in that.
That wasn't instantly. It
was
a little bit
pretty
journey.
fast. It was just like, okay,
but it wasn't
now,
instant.
So now that's over. Now we've got, okay, Winona Ryder has to marry Beetlejuice. There's this ex-wife who's around. Who will, I don't know how she factors in the story, but maybe we'll see. And then it comes together in this big sequence in the church where Justin Theroux is trying to marry Winona Ryder, and then Beetlejuice is there, but he has now legally obtained her. So like she's going to marry Beetlejuice. Jenna Ortega is just like, no, I read the contract and it's null and void, actually.
Oh, I didn't want to criticize that because I'm like, how the hell did you have time to read the contract? There was a lot going on.
No, it's like, okay, there's this big problem. But what they do is this big singing sequence that was like lip sync, which was very reminiscent of the Day-O, but with a different song. And it's like this big elaborate sequence. One. It was fine. It just felt like, hey, we're cool. Like we're doing the thing, you know, a little bit. But it was whatever. It was fine.
I liked it.
But basically what I'm saying is all the fun stuff, all the good parts of this movie are totally extraneous and separate from the plot and the story. It's just separate things. Like everything that's fun about the movie has little to do with the story. That's fine, but again, it helps when it's melded together and it works, because then, okay, Winona Ryder, its contract is null and void. Oh well, okay, Beetlejuice foiled once again. But then Monica Bellucci shows up. And then the cops show up. Well, Willem Dafoe, you know, as this actor cop.
Showed before, honey.
Yeah, they show up before, but it's all culminating here. And then Jenna Ortega again just goes, oh, I read in this book. I know what to do. And she just draws something on the floor like a hatch. And then the sandword comes out, immediately eats Monica Bellucci and Justin Theroux. And then that's it. It's just like, okay, literally, what was the point of Monica Bellucci being in this movie?
Well, it's interesting because it's like, when did you have time to read the book? Everything.
It was so sudden.
It's like you were an expert.
It was so sudden. Yeah. It was just like everything that was building up and that was creating some kind of tension or drama was just like, oh yeah, that doesn't matter. It's fine. taking
I
care
think
of it.
that's my
Super easy.
criticism also is not necessarily what you said, but the fact that Jenna's character knew more than Lydia. And Lydia it makes more sense for Lydia to be an expert because she's been doing this for years, for her to come through and come across some similar book in the past where she knows like spells and things like that, rather than a newbie who's in denial all these years that ghosts existed, just got like very much exposed to that world and has been busy trying to save her own soul, suddenly becomes an expert into all these different things that's going on. I don't agree with you when you say that it doesn't come together. I understand and see how the soul-sucking wife comes into play
How?
because Beetlejuice needs he's a little bit more vulnerable in this film than he was in the first film because Beetlejuice is going to get killed by his ex-wife or his wife, I guess they never divorced, they just died, because he killed her in real life and she killed him.
Well,
so
how does that change his behavior in the film?
I think like it's supposed to have more intensity, like things are supposed to.
It would have played out just the same.
No, I think it adds a little bit more, like why he wants to escape. Don't you think?
No, I don't think so.
I guess you could look at it either way. I liked it.
Here's what I thought the movie might be going towards, because we have like a new antagonist that we're introduced with, Monica Bellucci. Like, okay, she's scarier than Beetlejuice, badder than Beetlejuice. I was thinking, what if they do a kind of Terminator 2 thing? Beetlejuice, the main antagonist in the first movie. In the second movie, they need Beetlejuice to defeat the worst villain. It might have been fun. It might have been a new thing.
I liked it.
All right. Well, let us know what you thought of Beetlejuice.
We have very contrasting opinions, so let us know who you agree with or if you see both of our points, which is hard.
Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys later.
All right, thank you. Bye.